Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on the biggest trending cases going on in the United States of America and elsewhere. And today, a case that has baffled so many people is the execution-style murder by Sheriff Mickey Stines in Letcher County, Kentucky, allegedly, although it is all caught on tape, but we must say alleged until he is convicted in a court of law. And again, he shoots and kills by firing 8 rounds into his former friend and judge, Kevin Mullins. Kevin Mullins was 54 years old, and what a story it is. We are going to bring in the best guest for you, the person who's been out in front of this the whole way, Elizabeth Jones, host of Hillbilly Crime, and here she is. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back, Joe. How are you?
Doing well. Love having you on. I appreciate it. And then a special treat for both of us. This might be the first time, but probably not. The two mothers will be the best guests, starting off with Zelma Forbes, the mother of Elizabeth Jones, otherwise known as Sweet Tater. How are you, Zelma?
Oh, I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. I don't know proper Kentucky etiquette. Do I need to call you Ms. Forbes, or can I call you Sweet Tater?
You just call me anything you want to.
Or
even
Zelma.
Honey works.
Honey, I love it. I love it. Is that a banjo over your left shoulder? Zelma?
Oh, yeah, I play banjo, you know.
Oh, wow. I love it. Okay. And
Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, I got you now. Yeah, I got you. We're good.
And Sweet Tater is my name on the radio. I do radio shows at WMMT on Thursday and Friday.
I love it. Look at this. Sandy here says, love how you all are collaborating, and I love both your moms. We all love our moms. Although I'm a night owl, not a morning person, and I told Karm I need a few more hours to adjust to her mellifluous voice, and here she is. Without further ado, like Oprah, she goes by one name, Karm. Not even Elizabeth's mother goes by one name, Karm. You, Oprah, maybe Elvis, and I don't know who else goes. Prince. You're in an elite crowd, Karm, and your Wi-Fi appears to be horrible all of a sudden. How are you doing, Karm?
I'm doing good.
Good. Is that correct word?
Can you hear me?
I can. You're kind of buffering up there. You're in front of a college professor, Zelma, and the correct response would be, I'm doing well. Good is improper English, but it's a good thing she's a math professor. So
that's a colloquialism.
Yes. So we're all here. We're all good. Zelma, meet my mom. My mom meets Zelma, and this is going to be an interesting show, no doubt. So on a serious note, a lot of accents going on here today from different varieties of accents. But so there is some news, and among the news that's out there are some new videos, and we're going to play this. Now, you all need to know that Zelma and Karm are sweet mothers, and they look benign, but they are both tough, and they are both very smart. Zelma is a math professor and has been for, I think, the better part of 50 years, and a radio host. And Karm is a licensed therapist. So these are not just any women here. You're getting insight from some smart women. And then Elizabeth and I, we're the, I don't know what we are. But Elizabeth, so.
You are the progeny.
The progeny, correct. Thank you. Karm looking magnificent, someone said. So, Elizabeth, kind of fill us in here. People are warning me, Joel, don't get yourself in trouble. That's a good idea. Elizabeth, this story is becoming more and more bizarre by the moment. It's still since September when this happened, we don't have a full understanding as to the simple word why. Do you feel like we're getting closer to that now? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I think you muted you.
Yeah, sorry. I think that it's getting crazier by the day. Every time a little bit more information comes out, it gives us a little bit more clarity and it gives us a little bit more insight into exactly this systemic monster that seems to have bred right here in our county. And I'm sure it goes on everywhere.
Yeah. Zelma, by the way, look at this comment. I'm going to screenshot this. I think it might be facetious, but no one would know that. It says, Karm, your son is a real man. Do you agree with that, Mom?
Yes, because the real man can feel and cry, and you are a real man.
So it's like an underhanded compliment. So Zelma, let me come to you. Obviously, you have media chops because you do radio. You got to be proud of your daughter. It's a very small rural part of Kentucky, Letcher County, and she's really helped to bring a lot of attention and are holding people accountable here. Do you worry for her at all?
Well, yes, I do. I did more in the beginning than I do now. I've sort of, gotten kind of used to it. But you never know what people's retaliation will be. And it isn't that they retaliate, that they'd catch you out and shoot you. They'd come and burn your house down.
I mean, does that still go on? And forgive me, but I guess I'm a little naive, having not grown up in rural Kentucky. But is that something that could legitimately happen, where you come home and the house is, not there anymore?
Yes, that's legitimate. The most wonderful people in the world live in Letcher County. And I truly believe that. But my experience has been teaching at the community college there in Whitesburg. So the people I had were people that wanted to, that I knew were people that wanted to, they had motivation and they had smarts and they wanted to overcome whatever the stereotypes were and all of that stuff. But there is still that element, as we know, we've witnessed, that wants to resort to guns and other forms of violence to solve their arguments.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we're going to get in, we're going to jump in right into the proverbial.
Can I just say one thing?
I was just getting to you, Karm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
One thing is, when you mentioned, fire that would burn down the house, and Joel, the one who had a sheltered life, he just said, you come home and you find your house burned. That's the better of the two scenarios, instead of being in the house when it burns down. That you didn't even think of that option. It's very, very extremely scary. And for this reason, I think that Elizabeth, who, by the way, my sister's name is also Elizabeth. Elizabeth is very brave. And thank God, so far, you said you only had 3 negative comments on your website, which is terrific.
Yeah.
Karm, I'm running tab of your underhanded compliments / insults. I forget what you just said, but you said that I am basically have not lived. I've lived a sheltered life. That was number 2. Number 1 is that I'm not really a real man, even though so that's 2.
No, I think you are a real man, and the first 100%, it wasn't underhanded. I mean, real men have to feel.
Look at the COE. You cry, COE. This is true. I haven't cried in a long time, but it's true. I do actually love to cry. It's like cathartic. But anyway, okay. So we're moving on here. So, Karm, before we get to the videos, you grew up in rural Serbia, not to be confused with rural, Letcher County, Kentucky. I'm just wondering, if it's been a while, but if you yourself, growing up in a small rural area, if there was corruption, I don't know how it is in Europe, but any similarities, any parallels that you can think of?
Well, the thing is that I left there at the age of 19, and what was going on before that, I didn't have to handle. I wasn't one of the adults, but it was complicated in a different way. When I was growing up, believe it or not, it was communism. It was a little a different variety, and I'm sure that you would remember there was a leader called Tito, but nonetheless, it was communism. So it was a different type of corruption. The Communist Party made all the decisions, and when it came to elections, there was one party that you could vote only for one party.
Joel is not an only child. You would think that I am, but I am not. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to kind of break it all down. And I have to say this, Elizabeth, again, has been kind of leading the reporting on this, and my number one concern is her safety, because she's getting some information that's people are not going to like. Let's put it that way. So I told Elizabeth very clearly that she should just divulge what she can, how she can, etc. But before we get into the new video, I just want to set the stage. This stops before the actual shooting, but this is the original video. Karm was screaming at the COE that she doesn't want to see it, but it stops before the actual shooting. This is the original video, just to refresh everybody's mind. By the way, welcome into everybody, especially our friends in Kentucky. I know there's a lot of Kentuckians that come in for these shows. So welcome to one and all. And I would have to agree, having never been to Letcher County, that they probably are some of the best people in the country, because it is the fabric of our nation, the middle of the country, hardworking people. So I'm sure Zelma is correct. So this is the original video here. Here we go. And you can see they're arguing, pulls a weapon. And this is literally, oh, I'm sorry. Do we COE? Okay. So it kind of stops at certain spots. Again, I've said this every single time. Karm, this guy is smoking a cigarette, which is fascinating to me, because you can't really do that, but the rules are broken in different ways. In his right hand, there's a cigarette. Karm, for all you've been through, the Holocaust, losing a child, losing your husband, growing up in communist Europe, what's it viscerally? What's it like for you to watch the video of literally a man's last moments on Earth as a guy is shooting at him? How do you handle this internally?
There are very few things that I cannot deal with. Through the years, I just deal with what I need to deal with. But one thing I cannot deal with is executions. I cannot deal with executions. For example, there are people who will go and watch. If somebody has to go to the electric chair, they literally go and stand in line to be the ones to watch the execution. That's one thing, and I don't think it's any kind of nobility on my part. It's just a physical, complete repulsion or some kind of a physical reaction, and I cannot deal with it. So I don't want you to show this. If you are showing it, tell me that I could cover my eyes.
There you go. Karm does not like scary movies either, so that's part of her MO. Zelma, let me go to you, then I'm going to get to your daughter. Just generally speaking, now that bits and pieces of this story are coming out, and you've been there, I presume, for the better part of your entire life, Has this corruption always existed? And I know we're kind of skirting around the details, but we're going to get to some of them. Has this always existed? The fact that it got to this point, does it surprise you, or were you sort of in some weird way expecting it?
Well, the event surprises me because of because of the ability to do it. You know, you'd think that there was a few more protections in place in a courthouse, but no, the fact that something like this could occur, it doesn't surprise me. You if you go back and look at the videos that are shot of the coal mining strikes back in the 30s and then again in the 70s, this is, you just wouldn't be surprised, is all I can say. It's pretty violent.
Yeah. And when you're out there, I imagine you know a lot of people because it's a small community and you've been there a long time. Do people ask you about this? I mean, is this something that people are talking about day to day?
Well, they probably wouldn't talk to me about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't, I have an isolated community of people that I'm usually around, and I probably would refuse to talk about it because I don't know anything more than they know.
That's a good point. So, Elizabeth, this is obviously the original video, or at least now we're looking at still shots in deference to Karm here. So, we're looking now, just for housekeeping purposes, do we know when the sheriff is due back in court and what is going to potentially happen?
We don't have a court date as of now. They just released the order that they gave at the last court hearing, and it basically just said everything that they said verbally in that hearing. The prosecution, or they were expecting 4 to 6 months for discovery and trying to get the mental evaluations done for Mickey. So we still don't have a court date yet.
And again, I've asked you this every time I've had you on. Have we heard publicly from either Mickey Stines' family or Judge Mullins' family? I assume it's kind of community where you're going to see some of these people. I grew up in a small town. The town that my mother raised me in and my father in New Jersey is 1 square mile. It was very small. So you go to the post office and you'd see people. I imagine the same thing happens in Whitesburg.
Yeah. So the judge's family, I think, is kind of more out and about and visible more so than Mickey's. I haven't heard any reports of Mickey's family. I think they're all trying to just be quiet and not say anything. Nobody's really come out and said anything. You had the brother-in-law of the judge, who was also just coincidentally appointed as the Commonwealth attorney for Letcher County. And so he came out after the shooting happened, and he gave a couple statements or did a couple videos through his office, but he took 1 or 2 of them back down pretty much as quickly as he put them up. And that was really the last thing we heard. There was a GoFundMe started for Mickey's family right after it happened, and I was shocked. They raised almost $10,000 in a very short amount of time for Mickey's family. And as soon as that GoFundMe was put up, then the judge's brother-in-law, the new Commonwealth attorney, came out and shared that they were putting together a college fund for the judge's kids, that if anybody wanted to come. So I called it kind of the dueling donations. And the judges, and honestly, what shocked me was that the judges' donations were like $1,500 when I looked. and Mickey's were almost 10,000. So that kind of shows you, and when the wealthy, the already wealthy comes out and wants and kind of, I don't know if it's expects the wrong word, but when the already wealthy comes out and asks the other poor people of this county, to help pay for their college, when pretty much their college will be paid for anyway. I think it was just kind of a bad look. It looked bad.
Yeah, you're saying because he's highly educated, he's a judge, he's got to be well off somewhat financially. But the brother, it sounds like they come from a smart family because the brother is also an attorney. What can you share the brother's first name? Is his last name Mulins as well? The brother?
The brother-in-law, that is Matt Butler.
That's a brother-in-law. Okay.
That's Judge Mullins's brother-in-law. They married sisters.
Gotcha. Gotcha. But someone here pointing out huge difference between the donations. So the newest stuff really is a new video. So now there's a video from before the shooting that Court TV obtained. So shout out to Court TV, and Elizabeth's video is buffering, so I'm going to stall here for a moment, hoping that she comes back in because no offense to the other two guests, but we need Elizabeth, and out she goes. So Karm, when you were reading up, because I know you do your research, I know that you locked yourself in your condo yesterday to study this. What strikes you? It's not every day that we hear a sheriff allegedly shooting and killing a judge. What kind of stood out to you in this story that's different from, let's say, other true crime stories, Karm?
Well, the interesting thing about this story, because I wouldn't use the word interesting if I were there, Thelma, but and part of the community, but from the outside, the interesting thing about these developments, it's almost like peeling an onion. You have one layer, then you have the second layer, the third layer, and I think we are now almost at the fourth layer. That's how I conceptualized it. In other words, I was thinking of it. First, you have the murder, and this is very strange. The sheriff shoots the judge. Then you slowly, all these other aspects of what's happening in this county with these people and the drugs, and the implication of the drugs on the lives of the people, and then the implication of the money that is part of these drug situations. And so as Dr. Rhodes, who spoke with you about this last time with Elizabeth, and you mentioned, check on the money, see where the money leads you. And then there is another layer and another layer. And every time you think you got to the bottom of it, there is always another layer. So far, there are many layers of the story that make it like surprising. Every time a new layer comes up, it's very surprising. And also, I have to say, very, very sad. When you hear in abstract about how many young people died from an overdose, that's like a number. But when you are now going inside this community and you realize how many people were affected by these drug overdoses and just the drugs in this community, and how it influences the wealth of a lot of people and the corruption of a lot of people, it becomes a much broader story than just the sheriff and the judge.
Well, so as Zelma, I have to jump in there. I mean, your own daughter has been open with her own struggles, and obviously she turned her life around. But how big an impact does the opioid problem in this part of Kentucky, and I don't know if there's a new one now besides opioids, but how big an impact has this had on the community in general? Because it affects this story. For those who don't know, basically there have been accusations. There was a deputy arrested for having sex with a woman, multiple women, in the judge's chambers, which is what many people think this is all about. And it was because these women were arrested on drug charges most of the time and were forced to wear ankle monitors. And to get the ankle monitors off, that's how you would get it off, is by obliging these corrupt men's needs. But how I mean, to you, Sweet Tater, how much is the drug problem in rural Kentucky impacted or still affecting these communities?
Well, this made a big impact on the county that we live in because so many people are on the drugs. It's just awful that people that you pay to protect the community take advantage of some of the most poorest women of all. Now, I don't care if they went out and had sex with 10, I guess I can say that, 10 men a day to support their habit. It still is not right for the people we hire to victimize them. And that's all they were victims. They were victims, and we supported that victimization of them. And so there's so many children that don't live in homes that are drug free. And, it seems to be generational, but I don't really like that word too much, because then, and I don't talk about it because we don't want to impose a set of rules on a whole community of people that, Letcher County's got a bunch of drug addicts in it. We don't want that notion to be part of the responsibility of the whole community, because it isn't, but it has affected us greatly.
Very well said. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then we have these institutions where we try to get these gals to go to. And if you notice they were gals, do you think there's less men around here that are addicted? I don't think so. It's just that for some reason they focused on the women, what I'm saying, to put in these institutions. And they are for-profit institutions. So they're going to make all of the money that they can possibly make, and they're going to cut back. They're going to provide cutbacks to anybody that sends these girls to their institution.
Wow. Josephine Santamoro here, Karm. She lives in Westchester in New York. Hello, Miss Karm. I got home from work and she works in the ER, Karm. By the way, I'm watching a show on Max called Pit about an ER. It's a great show. I'm really into it. But hello, Miss Karm. I got home from working 8:30 this morning. Set my alarm. I never miss STS Karm. Your book was so inspiring. I put 3 copies in my ER waiting room for the patients. Many have asked how to buy it. So, Karm, do you care to respond to that comment?
Well, I am very gratified and grateful, and thank you. And Joel wrote the book.
I was a test. I wanted to see if you'd admit that, Karm, but you've signed it. Okay.
Well, it's hard to deny when your name is on it.
Yeah. So Court TV, they got their hands on some video, Elizabeth. I'm going to play it right now. I'm going to play it through once. There is no audio. I'm going to play it, and then we're going to play it a second time and sort of have Elizabeth break this down as best as she can. But here we go. This is now before the shooting. This video has not been out, has not been around until Court TV got their hands on it. Kudos to my friend Vinny Politan. Here we go. So you see them. You see the judge kind of holding court, and that is Mickey Stines in the back, the foreground on the right, sitting in a chair. And we're going to replay it in a moment and have Elizabeth kind of walk us through what she thinks is going on. So, Elizabeth, I'm going to hit play again. Can you just kind of talk over it and tell us what we're seeing here?
Sure thing. So we've got the judge sitting at in his chair. The man that's standing right next to him, that is our circuit court clerk. He is Mike Watts Sr. Now, his son is an assistant county and commonwealth attorney. So and his father was actually the circuit court clerk back in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, but Mike is a really good guy. I like Mike really well. The guy that's sitting in the windowsill, that is the preacher. That is the community liaison who works for ARC, which is the big rehab facility that is being investigated by the FBI right now for Medicaid fraud.
Let's take a step back there for 1 second. So for those who don't know, there's a huge federal investigation going on that basically said, and forgive me, Elizabeth, I'm a little off on this, but basically same sort of thing, that they were taking money from people who were in need of drug recovery help. Is that right?
Yes. So the court, Judge Mullins, this is what he's known for. This is his big, prize that he wore so very proudly. He put in this program he started this program where he would send people who were arrested on drug charges, and he would send them to rehab. Well, so people would go for a 30-day or however long they were court ordered for. And so they go to these rehab facilities. But here's where experience and science matters. Statistics matter. Abstinence treatment has a very low success rate. It has for a very long time, a long-term success rate. It's just very low. People do really well when they're in a controlled environment, for say 30 days. Yeah, they do great. They graduate. Wonderful. But then they have to go back home when that's over. And like Mommy said, a lot of these people are, it's generational addiction. And you've got, in some homes, you've got 3 generations living under one roof.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Elizabeth, there's a question here. Was he getting, we don't know if the judge, I think they're speaking of the judge here. I don't know. Maybe they're asking about the preacher, but do we know if anybody, like on the record yet, if the feds have said who exactly, if anybody was getting kickbacks for sending?
No.
We don't
know.
They
haven't come out with anything with that investigation at all. The Kentucky Lantern is a very reputable news source, and they kind of have.
Well, we just lost Elizabeth, but I'm gonna, while she's coming back here, let me go to Zelma. Zelma, you're looking at this video now. This is before the shooting. I don't know exactly how long before the shooting, but it appears to be, I think, fairly soon before the shooting takes place. When you're watching this video, what, if anything, strikes you? And I'm going to ask Karm the same question. You're looking at body. I mean, it is, I'm going to stop it right here. It is very, to me, very eerie to know that his life will be over in a matter of moments. And he's just sitting there having a conversation about, it just goes to show the fragility of life for all of us. We think we're on this earth forever. And just a few moments time, Sheriff Mickey Stines allegedly takes him out, although we have it on video. So what are you seeing here, if anything, in this video, body language wise or otherwise?
Well, Mickey's just sitting there and he crosses his arm and he's fiddling with his mouth. So I don't know if that's what he usually does in conversation or not. Now, this is before lunch, and they also went to lunch together. Mickey and the judge had lunch together, and it looks to me like Mickey is sitting there studying the situation and trying to make up his mind about stuff, if you know what I mean. And the guy that's got the papers that's showing them to the judge, that's probably something that was taking place that morning that they're talking about, cases or something. Now, the preacher man over sitting on the window, of course, we know that he was not a very nice feller.
What do we know about him, Zelma? And I'm going to get Elizabeth.
Well, he was in jail, and I don't know how he got out, but he did send some messages to some ladies. No, she said, I can't say it. So he's not a very good dude.
Yeah. So let me have Elizabeth jump in here. Elizabeth, the video is 12:02. The shooting is at 2:52 FYI. So if you do the math, it's a couple of hours, almost 3 hours there, I guess, if I'm doing the math correctly. Let me just say it this way. Elizabeth, in her reporting, has gotten some very, very important and let me just say disturbing information, but she has to be very careful with it, and it relates to this video. So, Elizabeth, that's all I'm going to say, and you tell us what you're comfortable with. Again, your mother is telling us that my iPad just went out here, but your mother's telling us that this is the town's preacher here, and I believe she just said he had served some time, if I heard that correctly. So, what do we know about? He is wearing a shirt that says "love." What's this preacher's name? Do we know? And
can I just say something, Joe?
Yes, Karm.
Elizabeth has to be very careful because we don't want any harm to, no matter what her information. And I just not knowing anything about anything, it looks like they are planning some kind of a conspiracy.
Karm.
Boy, I like Miss Karm, buddy. Yeah. She's got it right on the. She hit that nail right on the head.
Karm doesn't mess around. So, Elizabeth,
I go after my, I trust my instincts, so I share. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth so badly I can't pull it out for a while. But this is what I feel when I look at this. And be careful, don't say anything that it can hurt you.
Thank you, Miss Karm.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, the floor is yours. First of all, just tell us about this video in general. What are you seeing here? Body language is interesting. The sheriff is just kind of like scratching his chin and looks like he's just taking everything in. And then you got Preacher Man on the ledge there, who's now talking to Mickey, it looks like right there. Who's this other guy on the left in the black shirt? Do we know?
So, yes. So his name is Tim Eisen, if I believe. Michael Clark is the preacher that's sitting on the windowsill. Now, we're all from the same little town across the mountain. And so I've known of him and known him since he was in Little League. Now, a lot of the athletes around here back in our generation when we were young, they and even the ones that came after me tended to get caught up in that opioid crisis. You had a whole lot of young people who had a ton of potential, but because of the environment that we lived in here, there wasn't enough for people to do. And for whatever reason, a lot of us got pulled into that opioid crisis. They flooded this area with pain medication and would give it to just about anybody who asked for it. And it just created a lot of addiction issues in this area. What we know about Michael Clark is he had a very extensive criminal background as an adult. He was allegedly a rug trafficker. He's had several felony convictions on his record. He'd went to prison. He'd served prison time. And then he got out of prison right around the time that I started going to school and stuff. Well, he got out and he started doing videos on Facebook, preaching to people and, just telling everybody his story and that he had, turned his life around and found God. And, a lot of these people, if they have the gift of gab, they can get people to like them awful easy. And, a lot of these people are very charming. They know how to speak and how to win people over. And if you just give them a microphone, they can take over.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. Does he have like his own congregation? This guy, I'm not.
Well,
sure.
he ended up getting one. So what he did was he went down to the jail and he started trying to get in to preach to the inmates, and they just rolled out the red carpet for him and let him come in, and he preached at our local jail. He preached at the neighboring county jail. He started going into the prison systems. They'd let him go in there and he'd preach. And so he ended up preaching at a church over in Cumberland, a really big Pentecostal church. And I don't know what happened there, but he ended up leaving there and he came over here to Letcher County, where he started a church at the Cane Kitchen, which is a nonprofit right down in town. And every Sunday he would, where he worked for this rehab, they had ended up hiring him on with ARC, and they created this position just for him. They didn't have this position before. They created it for him because he had made so many of these big connections in the courthouse by going down there and preaching to the inmates. So he ends up with this great big following here in Letcher County of people who were in treatment, people who were in recovery, who were seeing his story, and it was admired. People admired him. They wanted to be like him. They thought that they could do it too. So we end up now, fast forward 5 years later, and they had built this. I think that my own personal opinions on it is they all saw how much money was coming into the state through medically assisted treatment. Mom saw for this year for Kentucky, they were going to give them $900 million. That's all in like Medicaid funding and addiction funding. The state of Kentucky filed a lawsuit and they got a big opioid settlement where every little town got a piece of that settlement. The other man that was sitting in the courtroom or in the judge's chambers with them, he, from what I understand, works for a different rehab company.
You're talking about the guy in the black shirt?
Yeah, the one in the black shirt. He works for MCCC from what I understand. And what I'm thinking is that they have created him in a position similar to Michael Clark, the preacher, had with ARC. And so they were finding all these ways that they could enrich themselves. And Mommy made a big point there that this was ARC is a for-profit rehab facility, but there are other nonprofit groups that are around here and in other places. And with the nonprofit groups, there's a whole lot less oversight. But you wouldn't believe that, or you wouldn't think that, but it's very true. So all somebody has to do to start a 501c3 is create their own board of directors, and they can choose whoever they want to be on that board of directors. It could be their mother, their brother, their cousin, their niece. They don't have to have any educational background whatsoever. It doesn't matter how much confliction there is or family relations. They can stack that board with whoever they want to stack it with. And then they are allowed to basically name their salary. They can pick their own salary. And as long as it fits within, a reasonableness, range, then all they have to do is submit that to their board, and their board votes on it. And there you go. You got you a salary, as long as your organization is funded. And so they go out and they get all these donations. We just had one recently come to our little town city council meetings and talked everybody out of their settlement money. They said, if you give us your portion of that, which I'm paraphrasing, if you give us your portion of that settlement money, we're going to come in and we're going to train your officers how to deal with people in addiction. We're 35 years on the other side of it. So it's just a money racket. They have found a way to build our local economy on the suffering and the devastation of addiction.
Yeah, that's very interesting the way you put that they're basically, if you follow
allegedly
the money, they're allegedly living up. T. Duclos always in the chat, friend of the show. I've seen this in my small town. By the way, if you appreciate the content, you appreciate Karm, you appreciate Sweet Tater and Elizabeth, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please subscribe to her channel at Hillbilly Crime. And we've got a Patreon page as well that is always being reinvented. But from Sir Thriver, which is a great name, to you, Sweet Tater, the Appalachian rehab and church connections to rehabs are as corrupt as the days and nights are long and hard. They need it the most and are abused by the leeches the most. Followed here by Appalachia has always had these problems. They were hit hardest by hillbilly heroin than any other states in the union. I assume you agree with this, but can you kind of put into perspective, because people who don't live in sort of this rural area of Kentucky or maybe another rural area, what is the role? Because again, this is according to Elizabeth, this is the preacher of the town. What is the role of this person general? I mean, you're hearing that he's an ex-con and everyone deserves some form of redemption, but it doesn't sound like he has changed his ways, and now he's preaching. So Sweet Tater, what is the role of a preacher in this community?
Well, he's not in the traditional role of a preacher because I don't know what he did at the Pentecostal church over in Cumberland. I didn't know he was over there. And when he was in the jails, of course, he didn't need a church. I mean, he doesn't have a church you can go to and sing in the choir. You know what I'm saying? And take your kids to Sunday school. And so when he went up to Kane Kitchen is a nonprofit. And they do a great service. You know, if you don't have nonprofits, then you don't have all this free food that we give to everybody and all these other things that we do for people if you don't have these nonprofits. So they're not all bad. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are really good things and they do real good stuff. But the role of a church in this community would be the preacher would have services on Monday or on Wednesday and Sunday, and he'd visit people sick in the hospital and those kinds of things. And they'd have a choir and people could sing. That would be a traditional church. But like I say, that feller didn't have no traditional church. He was just a fly by the seat of his pants.
Sounds like a snake oil salesman to me. No disrespect to the
Yeah,
religion.
you got it, buddy. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So let me follow up on what Mommy just said.
Sure.
So right before this shooting took place, allegedly, Kevin, our judge, was going around looking for a building that they could buy, that ARC could purchase to actually put him in a church for the preacher. So they were going around, they were trying to find a place to put it. Somehow, I don't know where the money came from. I don't know how all of that financing stuff goes, but you better believe that they were passing around the offering plate up there wherever he was preaching. I mean, that's just something that happens here in the majority of the churches I've ever been to, especially if you're a visiting preacher. If you go in and preach in somebody else's church, they do what's called a love offering, and they pass the plate, and everybody takes up money for that specific preacher who's came in and you know preached the word. Okay, so they ended up buying a church or a piece of property on the other end of Letcher County in Isom and start this big church, because everybody's a preacher. The CEO of ARC as his career, he was an attorney. His story is he was an alcoholic, and he ended up in treatment, and then he started with one sober living house, and then just a few years he went from one sober living house to being the biggest rehab facility in the state of Kentucky. His college roommate was our sitting attorney general. So you have donations that have been given to political donations that have been given in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, there's a lot of connections here. So after the shooting happened, a lot of fuss went on at that church and the members of that church. From what I understand, the preacher had to resign. He was I don't know if he was forced to resign or if he voluntarily resigned, but he resigned. And he was taken out of Letcher County. He didn't lose his job or anything. From what I understand, it looks more like he's got a promotion. And they have moved him into a better paying job, doing something different somewhere else. And so he lost his church.
You mean this is the guy who was sitting on the window ledge?
Yes. Karm. He's an ex-con. Now the preacher.
The whole story. You don't have to repeat it.
If I ever did that to you, Karm, the amount of hate that I would get, but it's a double standard.
No, but I got the story, but the whole story did not surprise me because like Joel says, all snake salesmen were there from ever, and people are hurting. People are in bad way, both financially and mentally, and in every way, and they are very prone to become victims of con artists.
Happy anniversary, by the way, to Dom's mom, whose son shares a birthday with yours truly. By the way, if you like this whole mom's theme with Karm and Sweet Tater, we're going to do it again, I hope. I love having them on, and it is you always get the wisdom and the insight from people who've been around a little longer than you've been around. But Karm, something that people don't know about Karm, in the 1960s, she was a civil rights activist. She would march in the civil rights marches in the South and elsewhere. And when she was a licensed therapist, she worked with people who were marginalized in society, aka sex workers and other people. And I remember just a first named, I didn't know at the time, but afterwards, but she was Loretta, I think it was, Karm. This has to be 40 years. Lorana. And she was like a crack or a cocaine addict, and you would help her. And she really appreciated what you did for her. I remember that as a little boy, thinking my mom's got superpowers because she's helping someone that was, to me, was kind of scary.
I did a little reckless things. I would bring this Lorana who had no parents. I forget now the backstory, what happened to her parents. I would bring her to my house. And she had a lot of anger and hostility. And people afterwards said to me that was like a risky business,
The person who said that was your husband. So my mother and my father had a family practice together. They did therapy together.
He was a doctor. He was a psychiatrist.
My father said, "Don't ever give anyone the home number." Karm would give everyone the home number, and I'd be the one in the middle. I would answer the phone, and people would be cursing at me, and I was like, I'm not Dr. Waldman. I'm just the son. Leave me alone. But my point is,
you know that just 1 minute, I want to tell you this. You know how some people literally are born, they don't feel like very hot or very cold. There's something with the I don't know, with their the way they were genetically, they don't feel it. I don't feel too much personal fear. In other words, I worked with juvenile. At that time, they called them juvenile delinquents.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember expecting my first child and sitting with a few of them. And literally behind me, there was a blackboard. And they would take these very sharp knives and throw them on the blackboard, like squishing by me, like, I mean, those were like 50 years ago.
Yeah. Thank you to Dom's mom. But Karm, the big question that I didn't get in yet is, what's it do to your blood pressure to know that some of these men are being accused or allegedly are taking money in lieu of preying on these very vulnerable women, and not only taking money, but apparently in some cases forcing sex on them? Your reaction to that, Karm?
Unfortunately, this is not something I heard the first time happening in your town in Kentucky. I mean, I heard of this. Even though women have come a long way, it's still women are oppressed by men and mistreated by men because they are stronger and they're frustrated and they have to take it out on somebody. And this is not a universal thing. But it happens a lot.
By the way, for those who don't know here, Tuli Pool in the chat comes to us from Lesotho, Africa, which is a landlocked country surrounded, I believe, by South Africa. Karm, I must brag for a moment. Do you ever think your son would host a show with viewers from Lesotho, Africa, Karm? And have you ever been?
No, I was never in Africa, and Joel was, and I'm sure very impressed. I'm impressed by this globalization of it's unbelievable, in almost all of the English-speaking countries, and even in some countries where the English is not the first language, people watch us in English. And there is now a service you can get. Joel explained it to me. You cannot get it live, but you can get a service that will simultaneously translate our conversations into various languages that you choose.
By the way, Tammy Conley here, they're having a chat about getting your book, as they call it, Karm, your book that I worked on, but they're getting it on Audible. And for those who don't know, Karm and I did narrate the book. I'll say this. The book, not because I wrote it, but because of Karm's story, it's called Surviving the Survivor, same as the podcast, anywhere books are sold. But it will change your outlook on life, not because of me, but because of my mother. And it's, as I always say, it's the most important story I've told. And it drives me crazy because there are a lot of moronic, if I may say that, books out there. I mean, just idiotic books that sell well. And this book should be on everyone's bookshelf. So please check it out. Again, it's Karm's story, very inspirational, and it will change how you see life. So the book is called Surviving the Survivor, and you can get it anywhere books are sold. So, Elizabeth, to you, I'd be so curious to see the reaction to the book in Letcher County, because it's very culturally not rural America. So
I would say they would have to listen to the recordings rather than read it. I tell you why. In the book, him and I use profanities when we get frustrated. off the air, never on the air. You will never catch me do this. But we use it, and he had the audacity, and he put it in the book. And when I did the audible part, I took it out. I refused to repeat those same words on the audible. So the audible is cleaned. It's clean.
Yeah. By the way, small factoid. Now that we're on that topic, because it is Miami, we had to go to an actual recording studio to record the audible. They wouldn't let us just like do it anywhere. So the only place I could find, shout out to House of Hits. It's where Kanye, ironically, who's been a little anti-Semitic these days, but ironically, that's where he recorded his last album, and Karm was the hit there. Everyone loved Karm. She was basically in a rap studio, hip hop studio, recording her book. And if you saw this place, it's straight out of a movie. Like there's lounges. Maybe people are smoking marijuana everywhere. Maybe they're not. Dom's mom, thank you for
it was open 24 hours a day. And the highest time of using this facility was after midnight, when the bands came off work and they were
like Kanye would go in at like 3 a.m. But anyway, just to see Karm, the juxtaposition of Kanye in a record. We never saw Kanye there, but he was there. So to see Karm in a hip hop studio, it was lit. And it's the most beautiful place you've ever seen. It's all like white with glass and super fancy. Anyway, shout out to House. Look at this, Karm. I would like
an industrial area. Like imagine the area is collapsing and run down, and you walk into this place.
Yeah, I've got, by the way, right about now, Sweet Taters, like, what did I get myself into? But IGG rocks. Look at this, Karm. I'd like a response on this one. Karm, thanks for giving us Joel STS in the book.
This is the least I could do for all of you.
Yes. Okay. So there's 2 other videos that we have to see. This one here, excuse me. This is now, we just watched the video of them prior to the shooting. We're going a little bit out of chronological order. Now, this is right after the shooting at the courthouse, and you'll see people are scurrying out. And then you are going to see Sheriff Mickey Stines walk out. So we'll watch, and then we'll talk you through it. Grainy video, but you see chaos. People are running. They hear gunshots, 8 gunshots. And now that's Mickey Stines calmly walking out before he shortly thereafter goes and turns himself in. This guy's not old. He's in his early 40s, but he's walking like he's 73. So, Elizabeth, to you, just what do you see here? Do you see the same thing as me, kind of chaos here? And do you know, like, the kind of the order of events? Because after this, he did turn himself in, but he's walking out of the courthouse. Where did he turn himself in?
This is really funny because they didn't let us know that this was how he was arrested and this was how it went down. When that first court hearing, his arraignment happened, and that detective got up on the stand and had to, it probably wasn't an arraignment, but had to testify. He kind of made it sound like Mickey walked out of the judge's chambers, or at least that was how I took what he said.
Me too.
Mickey walked out of the chambers and then walked into the courtroom, and quietly gave himself up. That's not what we see on this video. So we see Mickey right there where you're at. You see Mickey in the top of the steps, and then he comes down the steps. He walks out. Notice something on here, Joel. Nobody's running. It wasn't like there was one shot fired in that courthouse that could have been like an accidental discharge or something. That judge had 8 holes in him. So there was a lot of noise and sound going on. And you see a few people take off running, but most everybody's just hanging out in front of the courthouse. Now, right here, stop it if you can.
All right. Where do you want me to stop it?
Just keep letting it play and we'll see it again. I think it'll loop back around.
And by the way, he's not in uniform, obviously. So you tell me where to stop it.
No, he's in a polo.
By the way, where is the gun? Where is the gun?
It's holstered on his body,
now,
I think.
When he comes out, he's got his shirt over it. So you can't see his holster on his right hip. His shirt's hanging down over it. But when he comes out, he goes down the sidewalk and then he comes back up. And when he comes back up, or right before he goes down, you can see the holster. He's got his shirt pulled back up over top of it.
You can see it right here, coming right up. You'll see it right
there. He's in that big bright yellow shirt there. And so he'll come out and he goes down the sidewalk.
Here is.
That's the holster. Okay, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, and look, he's messing with his holster right there. So what's he doing? There have been several different reports that Mickey went to go see one of the attorneys, the one that actually represented him at the deposition. And so there have been kind of some speculation that Judge wasn't his only target that day, but we don't know that, of course. That's just pure speculation. But so the preacher who was sitting in the windowsill, you're going to see him too. He comes running from in front of the courthouse after Mickey comes down and goes down the sidewalk, and you'll see a woman in a green dress. When that woman,
overweight, slightly overweight.
Yes, that woman. When you see her, you see Michael Clark come running past her, and he doesn't try to. Here she is. Okay, you're gonna see Michael Clark come running past her, and it's the video is kind of choppy.
That's him.
There he is.
Is that him? Yeah, that's him in that hat. Elizabeth,
he's not trying to get nobody to safety. He's not trying to tell nobody else. I mean, that strikes me as odd. You also see the police come rolling in with their cars, and they all grab their long nugs, and instead of securing the scene, trying to get people away, they just run right on past everybody and just run in there. But that's Michael Clark right there.
Yeah.
And then
so
it kind of just goes away.
Just back to Michael Clark again. I have to leave this incredibly vague, and we'll probably come back to it. But I just want to give Elizabeth the chance to offer up what you're able to, because Elizabeth again is doing some amazing reporting, and she got some information, but I don't know what you can tell us or what you can't tell us, if anything at all. So I'll leave it to you.
Okay, so this is what I will say. For months, we've heard claims that powerful men in Letcher County were exploiting vulnerable women in the court system. investigators, apparently, they report that they never found any proof, but there's some out there. Let me go down here. I've got this written out because I just want to protect myself
Yeah, take your time. And this, by the way, again, is the preacher, the one sitting on the windowsill on the ledge there, with a shirt that says love, but he seems to love himself more than anyone else. And Michael Clark is his name. So Elizabeth's just going to refer to her note.
All this, preface it with saying allegedly, that, and then you know
Thank
what
you,
I mean.
Karm.
Allegedly, absolutely.
Allegedly.
Thank you, Miss Karm.
Yeah.
So we have a verifiable video of a public figure engaging in inappropriate behavior. And I'm not making any accusations, just reporting on what exists. Now, it seems like in the investigations, it seems to me like this is a very well put together human trafficking ring. I don't see how it can be anything else. And I think it surrounds money. And now this is just my opinion on what facts we know as of now. And a whole lot of other stuff I also found out today that ties all this stuff in together. So watch my show tonight.
Yeah, please. What time's it going to be on, Elizabeth?
Usually at 7 Eastern.
Yeah. And by the way, you are hearing, and it's, again, Elizabeth has to be very careful. But you're looking at these people, and one of them that we've been talking about, there's going to be some information to follow. Let's put it that way. And it's not pleasant information. And I myself know what it is now because we were talking with Elizabeth, and I don't want to be like secretive or we're just doing this to protect Elizabeth. But this is a disturbing story that gets more disturbing by the day, and today is by the day because we just learned some stuff that is not pleasant that will come out, but has to come out at the appropriate time. There is another piece of video that I want to get to because it's important for Karm. This is now.
Can I just say one?
Yeah. Go ahead, Karm.
I wanted to just say it's a huge onion. You remember how I said in the beginning, you stepped out for 1 minute, Elizabeth, and I said it's like an onion. You peel off one thing, you another thing, a third thing. Today you peel off, and today there is more, and then there will be more. It's like a huge onion.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 more videos. This one now is prior or coming home, walking back after lunch. Am I correct, Elizabeth? That's what this is. Walking after lunch. If you remember that day, the sheriff, the judge, and I presume was the preacher with them at lunch?
This video that you're going to show, it actually shows them going to lunch, and then it shows them coming back. So it shows them on both on both times. I don't think this shows the preacher at lunch. So I don't know if he was with them or not.
We're going to watch and break it down real quick, and then one more video, and we will wrap it up. Here we go. So this is a beautiful day in Whitesburg, Kentucky. And you see there is Judge Mullins right there. Guy in the shirt.
That's the courthouse. That's the courthouse in that top corner.
Oh, there you go. And there's Sheriff Mickey Stines. And do we know who's behind him? Or there's just I think do we know who's behind
Yeah. So one of the people, I don't know if I can see what you're seeing there. There's Judge Mullins, and he looks like he's by himself there. One of the deputies who's walking on the sidewalk.
That's okay. We're dog friendly
Dog's
here.
dreaming. She's barking at her in her sleep. So anyway, one of the deputies that you're going to see, I don't think you've got to that part yet. So there's Judge Mullins. He's by himself.
And
or those other
then
two people might have went down.
here's and here's the sheriff. And that appears to be a deputy maybe behind him.
Yeah.
Right there.
One of them is Jason Eccles. Now he's the one that was mentioned so many times in the depositions of Ben Fields. That's Jason Eccles on the right with the little star on his chest with the hat and the beard, the heavy set one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That is Jason Eccles. So he's the one who was tied to the chat groups, the real childish and immature chat groups that Mickey had with Ben Fields. So that's one of those deputies.
And if for those who don't know, there was in the deposition, I believe it came out that that Sheriff Mickey Stines and other deputies would send around like immature, sometimes sexual in nature, Facebook memes and things of that nature. So this is one of the people who was involved in that. But you see, it's seemingly kind of a perfectly normal day. Tater, I just want to get you in here. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
That woman in the pink shirt, I'm sorry, Joel. That woman there in the pink shirt with the black sweater on, she is the girl that works in Judge Mullins's courtroom. She was also the female that you saw coming in and out of the judge's chambers, talking to him when all those people were in there.
That's the
now
woman
the man in the back. Several people sent me his name and a whole bunch of stuff. But now he's an older feller. He's like in his late 60s, early 70s. He's not a road deputy, and I don't know what he does, to be honest with you. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know if he does court security and that's it. I don't know. They've got so many little positions that they can just create if they want to.
Yeah. Sweet Tater, I mean, we're looking at this video. This is the day of this murder. And it just looks like a typical day. What do you see here? That's the judge. He doesn't know that this is the last day of his life, which is very eerie, and he's on his cell phone like most people. Does it surprise does it surprise you that everyone seems to be so casual, including the sheriff who's going to allegedly commit this crime?
Well, they're all leaving the courthouse and they're going to lunch. And so we don't know what they discussed at lunch, but Mickey and the Mulins dude, the judge, sit together. So they may have been discussing stuff. You just never know.
Yeah.
But it does look very casual, and those are all court workers that was walking down the sidewalk going to that same restaurant. They all went to the same restaurant and ate.
All right. So one final video, because I want to get Karm's take on this. This is now after the arrest when Sheriff Mickey Stines is being driven by sheriff's deputies. And keep in mind, he is the sheriff and he sounds very paranoid, Karm. I'm going to play this. Karm is a licensed therapist. I'd like to get her take on this. And then we're going to say, goodbye. And then you can watch Elizabeth maybe breaking some big news tonight on her channel. But here we go.
Guys. No guys. This is not the jail. This is not the jail now.
All right, so this goes on way longer, but basically he says, this is not the jail. This is not the jail. He says, don't kill me. There was something else he said, Elizabeth. I'm just blanking that I was reading again last night. But Karm, he appears to be in a very paranoid state. What do you make of that? Or is it that he lives in a culture here in rural Kentucky where he's actually thinking he could be killed because what we heard earlier, you know, they
Like he
burn
says,
your house.
don't take me. I think I saw it before. It says, don't take me to the forest or something.
Right. He also says, don't kidnap my wife and kids. I think that's what it is. Right, Elizabeth? He says something along those lines.
Yeah, so that's what the detective reported in that hearing, was that when he was taken into custody, he made the comment, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid. But I just tell you, Joel, there were so many things that I think were misrepresented in that first hearing on the stand, under that testimony. Now that this video is coming out, I understand the concept of not giving too much of your case away, but some of that stuff just didn't seem to jive with me. You know, like him coming outside and going down the sidewalk and then coming back in. You know, they didn't tell any of that.
Yeah. Elizabeth from Butterfly Kisses here. Mickey got a phone call while they're eating. Then he wanted to talk to the judge right then. Judge said they talk later. Someone set Mickey off with news. Do you agree with that? And also, if we remember, the original reporting was that he called his daughter from his phone and the judge's phone. People thought the daughter might have been involved, and he has an underage daughter, Sheriff Mickey Stines, who's like 17 years old. But looks, from what I understand, more mature and is an attractive young woman. So then there was talk that maybe the judge was doing things that he should not have been doing. Have we ever gotten any more information about those phone calls and or this call at lunch?
Well, I do. So let me just throw out, this is a developing theory. Okay. So what if Mickey got a phone call, a threatening phone call, that scared him with information that he knew from being a police officer in this county for as long as what he has, or at least working in law enforcement? I'm sure that if there are instances where people may have been taken out somewhere, the reason why I say that is because he did not sleep for 3 days before this incident happened. He was very, very scared. His lawyer came out in the very last interview that I saw him give, and he said, when they asked him about the paranoid behavior, he basically said that, paraphrasing here, but Mickey had every right to fear for his life. He was in a very unique and special position where there were things going on around him that were not necessarily good. And so he was afraid that he would say the wrong thing, or that he already had said the wrong thing. Well, that makes me think of the deposition. Mickey was reportedly very, acting very paranoid. He thought his phones were maybe tapped by investigators or somebody. He, from what I have heard from several different sources, if he was around somebody, he would borrow their phone and try to use their phone versus using his own, because he thought that his was being, tracked or watched or something. So there's every single day and every single new revelation. We think that we know, have a good idea of what's going on. I've just figured out we don't know nothing. It just gets uglier and dirtier and worse.
Sadly, I think that's true. And someone said we might never know the full extent of it. And sadly, I think that might be true, because I think this corruption runs really high. So huge thanks to our guests. The moms have to get the final word. Elizabeth Jones hosts Hillbilly Crime. She's going to do a show, and she has information that she's obviously being cautious with, and I'm not sure what she'll do with it tonight. But check out her show, 7 o'clock tonight. Thank you for hosting the show, Karm. We will, Karm, you will not like this, but I will let you go before Sweet Tater, since Sweet Tater is in Whitesburg, Kentucky. Karm, your final thoughts on your onion analogy. And Karm, you raised a son that's naive. I don't know if I believe in corruption, Karm. Do you believe in corruption here, Karm? And how's this going to play out, in your opinion?
Unfortunately, there is corruption in the world. And I nominate Elizabeth to write the book about this.
There you go. People were
You
asking.
should really keep tab and notes, and you will write the book.
Yeah.
I think the paranoia of Mickey Steiner. I don't know what he did, but you do, and eventually this part of it will be revealed too. I don't know why was he so paranoid, but it sounds like he was. He was like, somebody once made a joke that even paranoid people have real enemies.
Yeah.
So he probably did have real enemies.
Yeah. There you go. Paranoid people, even paranoid people have real enemies. That's what Karm just said. Sweet Tater, you get the final word today, but let me ask you a question. If and when this goes to trial, and I came out there to cover it, do you think I would survive? And your final thoughts?
Oh, yeah, you'd survive. It's not that bad around here. And I think Elizabeth should write a book. She's a good writer. She really can write good, and she's real smart.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, you see?
And look at this.
In my life, if somebody held a gun to me to write, I couldn't do it because I can't write. But Joel can write, and if you can write, you should definitely do this, because this is not just about the sheriff and the judge, which in itself, if you think of the two characters who are involved in this, it's already a headliner, but it's the whole environment and the background stories that is unbelievable.
Yeah. And Sweet Tater, just a final question. I mean, about corruption where you live, there is corruption everywhere. What would you say to your community about kind of rooting out this corruption? Your daughter's working to help with that. What would you say? What can people do to help rid rural Kentucky of the corruption that it's obviously mired in right now?
Well, if the preacher in your church is a doing wrong, run him out and let the church roll on, and let the church roll on. We just need to get rid of this corruption and have justice. You know what I'm saying? Real justice.
Yeah, I love it. Sweet Tater, I'm inviting you and Elizabeth. You come to Miami, and you'll be guests of Karm's. We'll have lunch together, and
we will
I feel
like Joel would say, we'll hang out.
We'll hang out.
Hang out.
Yeah.
I like hanging out.
Yeah, love you, America. Love you, Letcher County, Kentucky. Love you, Serbia, Karm's hometown. And
I love everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the moms love everybody. I can't say the same for myself, but I'm sure Elizabeth loves everybody. And the banjo. Next time we'll have you play the banjo. We'll see you all. Make sure you check out Hillbilly Crime, 7 o'clock tonight. And we'll see you all tomorrow, I believe, at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great day.